Were you ready for us to start?
Yes, ma'am. You call it order.
All right, we're going to call the meeting of the Clinical Lab Personnel Committee to order at 10:06 a.m. by Zoom. The first order of business is the minutes of the last meeting. Patsy emailed that to everybody. Has everyone reviewed those?
Yes.
Yes.
Were there any changes?
No.
Was the date correct in the minutes?
What now? What are you asking?
I noticed that the date said March 7th, 2019.
Oh,
Was it 19?
That's been corrected.
Would anyone like to make a motion to accept them with that change and a second?
This is Beverly Ogden. I move to accept the minutes with that change.
I'll second it.
All right, the minutes have been approved and seconded. The next item on the agenda is introductions.
Ms. Brunson, just for the record, ask if all in favor and if there's any objections, because we have to do this by voice vote. And since we're using this technology, we don't want to have any reasons not to do it properly.
Yes, sir. Are there any objections?
No.
No.
Do we need to take voice vote individually?
No, but you call for a voice vote, all in favor, say aye, all in favor, opposed, say no. Or you can, if you say all in favor, aye, and any objections, you can record them at that point. Otherwise, you can move on, but you do need a voice vote, I think, to do this properly under this technology.
And all in favor, say aye.
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 Miss Gay, I need to, one other person just joined at 318-613-8639. I need to identify them before you go any further.
Yolanda Bennett.
Yolanda
Yes.
Bennett.
Yes.
Okay, we got it.
Were there any opposed? No opposition, so the minutes will be accepted. Next is for introductions. Do we need to go through introductions since our names? Angela has her hand.
Miss Angela had her hand up. You need to unmute yourself, Miss Angela.
That's not it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Has anyone agreed to take the minutes? Volunteers? Jessica,
I
can
will.
I take the minutes?
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Jessica.
okay,
I'm working on it. I will.
okay. great.
Louisiana.
And until I have to leave the meeting, I will,
It was a State Farm envelope, 2 Farm Bureau envelopes.
What?
I'm sorry, that might have been me.
Okay.
All right, we have another entry. 903-330-0497. Please identify yourself.
Yes, State Representative Kenny Cox.
Kenny Cox.
State Representative Kenny Cox.
Okay, got it.
It's next on the agenda is introductions. Our names are posted, Dr. Collada. Do the members of the board do we still need to go through and identify ourselves?
I think it would be helpful since we have a number of guests on, and I think it's helpful if we identify ourselves. So I would appreciate it if you would, and for the benefit of those who are not necessarily used to our meetings, I think it would be a good thing to do.
How do we start?
Well, why don't we start, Miss Patsy, why don't you just call the roll and ask everybody to identify themselves when they talk. If you have your system set up right, generally the picture will be highlighted in a yellow line, and you'll be able to know when they begin to say, "Hi, I am Dr. Collada, and welcome." And want to make sure all of you know who I am, and we can move on from that way.
I'm Patsy Jarrow with the Board of Medical Examiners. I'll go through Jessica Lassiter. Identify yourself, Jessica, with your picture.
Jessica, my name's Jessica Lassiter. I'm a clinical laboratory science educator that works at University of Louisiana Monroe.
Michelle Werner.
Hi, I'm Michelle Warner. I am a clinical laboratory specialist for managers. I work for Pathology Resource Network.
Beverly Ogden.
I'm talking through my phone, so you're not going to see a picture. But I'm Dr. Beverly Ogden. I'm president of the Louisiana Pathology Society.
Gay Brunson.
I'm Gay Brunson. I'm a clinical laboratory scientist. I work at Reeves Memorial in Bernice, and I represent the administration for LHA.
And you are the chair of the committee.
Yes, ma'am.
Angela.
I'm Angela Foley. I'm also a clinical laboratory scientist generalist, and I am on the committee as an educator from secondary education.
Morteza.
My name is Morteza Vaziri, and I represent the supervisory position.
Ashley.
Ashley Ware, and I represent the lab assistant position.
Shannon.
Shannon Skinner. I am program director for the MLT and phlebotomy programs at Delgado Community College, and I represent the 2-year level
Educator.
degree educator.
Yolanda.
Yolanda Bingett. I represent the clinical laboratory scientist.
Okay. I think that's everybody.
Introduce Dr. Bridges, please.
Dr. Richard. Is he on?
Dr. Richard Bridges, the rural physician member of the committee.
And Ms. Patsy, from the board, we have myself as the executive director. We have Ms. Susie Allen, who is our director of education and research. And of course, Mr. Phillips, who is our technology guru for today's meeting, keeping us on the straight and narrow. And we have a new sign in that's not been identified yet, Mr. Allen?
Yeah, I think I have to do a merge. 903-330-0497.
Yes, that's I'm State Representative Kenneth.
Okay.
Member of the Health and Welfare Committee for the state of Louisiana.
Thank you for joining us, Representative Cox. We will be. We have you in two places. We're going to clean that up right now, technology-wise. But I think it's safe to proceed on with the meeting. Thank you, Ms. Gale. I apologize for doing that.
No problem. We still have a lot of folks that are not muted. That is giving a lot of background noise. Next item on the agenda is appointments. The open positions are ex officio board member and CLS technician. Muted, Pat.
I know. I sent out an email to the organizations that nominate for those positions. I do think that possibly one person has already been nominated, but I'm not sure. I need to check with the governor's office. As far as I know, at most, there's been one nomination. We need some more nominations for that. So if anybody knows any technician who would be willing to serve in this capacity, that would be wonderful. But we do need to make sure that they realize that they need to attend the meetings that are held. Usually that's 3 meetings a year at most.
Ms. Gale, why don't you have the committee set a deadline to receive those? Maybe in about, I don't think we'll be meeting again for anytime soon. So why don't you give them 4 weeks? Ms. Patsy can send out, with Alan's help, a blast to all of the CLP technicians, or all CLP say we need a technician nominee. And then we'll try and formulate 3 nominees and then make a recommendation to the board of those 3 nominees, and the board and I will make the decision on one of those people.
All righty, Patsy, if you will do that, send out invitations. Okay. And we'll get 4 weeks from today.
So let's, well, why don't we say the end of November? That'll be Thanksgiving. So hey, November 30th, does that work?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Are there any objections to November the 30th? The Angela's hand is raised. Angela, there's a hand raise function you can use by clicking down at the bottom of your screen.
Reaction?
Recognize Miss Angela.
Is this what I only see clapping and thumbs up. I don't see a hand raised. Anyway, you recognize me, I guess. So I'm a little confused about who this invitation is supposed to go to invite nominations. Unmute, Patsy. Unmute yourself, Patsy.
The nominations have to be made by the organizations. So if anybody's interested, we can send it out to everyone, all the licensees, but they would need to contact one of the organizations to be nominated. And that organization would vet them and make that nomination, I suppose.
Well, okay. So it looks like to me, so you're going to send an email to all MLTs and licensed MLTs? Is that what we said?
You can do it any way you want, Miss Angela, but if you send it out to everybody and with the instructions that you have to go to, you have to be a technician and you have to go to the organizations to get nominated, that would be the way to do it.
Okay. In addition, then I would suggest also that those organizations that are able to nominate for the position also be notified at the same time that we are in need of nominations for this position and that they need to be submitted by November the 30th. Is that right? So there are really 2 steps to that process, right? You got to get people to volunteer, and then you got to get organizations to nominate.
Susie Allen has her hand up.
Miss Allen has her hand up.
Yeah, just to clarify for people who want to raise their hand, if you click on participants and the screen pops up with everybody who's on the call, in the bottom right of the participant screen, there is a little button to raise your hand or lower it. Just wanted to make sure people
see it. Thank you.
What were the organizations that can nominate?
LSCLS, CLPA, and AMT.
Okay.
We probably should send a written letter to the organizations and an email blast to all of the clinical lab personnel so that they'd all have the opportunity to know. And I think that's the best way to do it, since we may not have email addresses for the organizations.
Okay.
Patsy, will you send those out?
Yes.
What about the ex officio board member? On the agenda, it lists the ex officio board member.
Yes, we don't have one.
But that's what I did for y'all, but then nonetheless, whatever we need to do to get it proper, we'll do it.
So you're going to act as the ex officio board member?
I'm happy to do that if the board wants, if the committee wants me to. If you want
Okay.
somebody else, we'll get somebody else. I'll always sit in to help you at the meetings. You know that.
Okay, that's fine then. So we don't need to worry about that, if that's what everybody wants.
Do we need to take a vote, Dr. Van?
I would prefer it.
All in favor of Dr. Vincent Collada acting as ex officio board member, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Please answer. That's by unanimous. Thank you, Dr. Van.
I will do my best to help you as much as I can.
Next is the office update.
The only thing really, well, of course, throughout COVID, it's been difficult for everyone. I mean, people are working from home, people are working at the office. We were short an analyst. We have filled that position. The new analyst's name is Claudette.
Ashford.
I wanted to say Ashley. I knew that was wrong. She is a new analyst. She is learning. I mean, she's not 100% yet. It takes a long time to learn all these laws and rules and how all the mechanics work. Dave Vickner, our other analyst, has been with the board for a long time, so he knows the ins and outs well. Matthew Cook helps when needed, I think. So though things have been a little slower than they might have not have been normally, I think we're doing okay. She is in the learning process, and I think she's doing fine. Other than that, we have done some things because of COVID. We have extended for a period of time early on in COVID, we extended the temporary permit to 5 months to allow people to make sure they could get tested and get their scores back and all of that. Other than that, I don't know of any changes that we've made, but we did do that to help in case there were problems. I think that's it.
On that subject of COVID-19, Ms. Gay, there's a public comment that came in from a Miss Wendy Palermo from the Louisiana Community and Technical College System. She said, I would like to hear any COVID-19 update as it relates to this professional group, if possible.
Patsy, this is Beverly Ogden. One of the things we talked about was we were waiving the CME requirement for this year. And some people have requested that we put that on our website so that they know that applies.
Okay. Yeah, CEUs for this year, the board is suggesting that people get their continuing education if they have difficulty. We're not requiring it this year, but we are still providing continuing education programs. There's one today, and there are several more going on. Yes.
Excuse me, Ms. Munson, Dr. Collada.
Got his hand up. Yeah.
The board has published on its website since March all of these changes. We've waived the restriction or the requirement for, and there will be no audit of CMEs or continuing education units for any of our licensed classes. Additionally, the board has published all of the healthcare updates as they come from the Louisiana Department of Health on our website. And there's actually a set of pages dedicated solely to COVID-related issues. If you go to the front page of our web page, there's a COVID molecule picture diagram, if you will. If you click on the red letters next to that, it'll take you to, and you can see all of the governor's orders, all of our changes. We have, in fact, licensed almost 2,000 temporary, or I should say permits, and these permits allow people to practice in multiple fields. We have some for CLPs, we have some for RTs, doctors, PAs, and we have, this is always unchanging. We probably approved 4 yesterday, quite frankly. And I will tell you that the action of the legislature yesterday has put this somewhat up in the air. We'll have to wait and see what happens Monday. But all of our permits are tied to the Louisiana Healthcare emergency declarations. So if something happens to that because of the actions of the legislature, we would know about that, and all of those permits would then be null and void. They would cease to exist, and we will be sending emails to all of those people if that happens, and we'll publish that on our website. But as far as COVID-related issues, everything that we published has been sent to you all by email when it comes from LDH. And if you're not getting your emails, you need to check on your portal and correct your email address, and we will make sure that you get them. But if you don't tell us your new email address, we don't know it. So I suggest everybody who's changed their emails and say they're not getting them, go to the website, update your email, and we'll be able to get you those bits of information. Additionally, the website itself takes care of a lot of the publications, but just so you'll know, anything that comes from Department of Health is sent by email blast and is also published on the website. So I think that addresses most of the comments concern. If not, the commenter can let us know.
Also, these emails are sent to licensed individuals. If someone's not licensed, then they're not going to be getting it.
You are correct. We only send them to our licensees. And if the licensee does not give us the right address, it never gets to them. But for the public and anyone else, it is all on the website as well as for our licensee.
I wanted to say about continuing education, we have continued, LSU has continued to provide those. They are now on Zoom. There's the fall sessions are going on right now. There's one today, and they go on for the next week or two. So anybody that wants any, they're available by Zoom.
And Ms. Gale, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but because all of you as licensees probably received an email about the change to the electronic education unit tracker. We are using a company called CE Broker is the contractor that's providing that to the agency. And basically, every license class has a different number of continuing education hours required. But all we're going to do is we're going to phase this in now, since we had no requirement for 2020. If you are January, you all renew mid-year and end of the year. So you will have, if you renew mid-year, you'll only have a requirement of 2 times the number of months. So if the end of June would be 6, you'd have required 12 continuing hours, and we're adding 2 every month through the year. So whatever your maximum requirement or your minimum requirement is, you have to have those by the time you renew. And we're working, this is all, we understand this is a phase in. People are going to have questions. We're happy to help you with them. We're working with CE Broker almost every other week now to make sure things go along. And we'll be sending updates, questions and examples for people to help them through the process. So if anybody has any concerns about that, please direct them to me by email or by phone, and we'll help them out to make sure everything gets done.
Patsy, I'm not sure I have a copy of the updated agenda. I have next on here the MLT position update.
Well, we already covered that.
That's what I thought.
But yeah, that's right. Let's see.
I have next on here the rules revision task force update.
Yes. Doctor, we had a task force meet and worked on those rules. We're now waiting to get those typed and so that we can review them again and make additions. And at this point, I don't think we have anything to share. Is that right, Dr. Collada?
No, the agency has actually got 7 rules in process now. And you are on the queue. I can tell you that you're in the queue. We have a few items left undone from the last time that the group met, but we'll get those items cleaned up and get a potential draft of what the rules will look like for you. They'll be mostly bulleted points. They will not be in rule format. And then once you approve the comments, the bullet points, we will then go ahead and make sure that we get them drafted into what appears to be rules, present them to you for approval. The board then will approve them, and then they'll go to the OLRC and the first notices as required by the many steps involved in making rules.
Okay, so we'll be waiting for that rules update.
We have 2 hands raised, one Miss Angela Foley and one Miss Susie Allen.
Yep.
Angela?
So my question about that is, can we sort of set a deadline to try to get this rules committee together? I mean, we can do it by Zoom now, I imagine, right? To work on finishing these. It's like birthing an elephant, I believe. It's been a long process, but should we do that, or do you not want to get pinned down to try to, set a time for the committee to meet again?
We can set the time for the committee to meet. We can do that by Zoom. It's not a public meeting. It's simply a group of people that are getting together. We don't have a quorum, so we can do that without a public meeting. But the ultimate approval by the committee would have to be another public meeting. And you need to understand, Miss Angela, based upon the steps, once we start with the state, we are constrained by the Occupational Licensing Committee, which has set in its rules that there would be 2 reviews. They did not meet from March until July. They are trying to update their schedule, and they're starting to meet more frequently now. But nonetheless, it has to go through occupational licensing review. It has to go through the fiscal and economic impact statement. It then has to go through the process of a hearing after notification at the board. If there's any issue about the hearing, that would be addressed. Then it would go back to occupational licensing and review. And so with a tailwind, once we start the state process, it's going to take 7 to 8 months.
I realize that, but we can't even get that started until we actually have, revised the rules and have that down. So, but whatever, it's okay if you don't want to. If it's not.
What else did the committee need to do? I thought the committee had already red lettered it and had already submitted.
There were a couple of items left undone at the last time Angela and Miss Patsy and I met. We just need to get together and finalize those last 2 or 3 items from Patsy and Angela's minutes, and then we'll be ready to put them in bullet point form and get together with you all. So as soon as Patsy and Miss Angela want to meet, we can get together and get it done.
Okay.
Do we want to set a deadline though, like Ms. Foley said?
You all tell me. We'll do whatever you want us to do.
I agree. I think a deadline should be set. I think that makes people work towards getting the goal completed.
Personally, I mean, it's almost the end of October, but I think maybe it would be feasible for the 3 of us maybe to meet sometime before the end of the year. And we're very close to finishing the rule recommendations. So, I don't know how that works with Dr. Collada. Patsy's right next door to me. I don't know, Patsy, how's that work for you? Unmute.
Well, I'll interject. We can set this as a Zoom meeting. We can do this by Zoom, but there's only 3 or 4 items left to do. And we get that done, and then we'll get our staff to put together the bullet points, and then we can send them to Patsy and you, and make sure you approve them, and then Ms. Gale can call a meeting, and we can get a meeting together to get this done. Now, we will only be able to do Zoom meetings for the advisory committee as long as the declared emergency exists. After that, we'll have to have on-site, and so our on-site meetings will now have to occur at the board in New Orleans. That's the one drawback we do have. We no longer are able to use the offices in Baton Rouge that we were previously using.
Susie Allen still has her hand up.
Susie, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Just a quick point and request that I be kept up to date on those bullet points and the changes that you're working on, because as we work on the updated version of the board orientation and jurisprudence course, to the extent that I have that information, partially in there and sort of redlined so that I can make those changes, that part of the process will go much faster once the rules are.
No problem. We'll keep you abreast. Once the board approves the final draft, you'll be given a copy.
Okay, I have next on the agenda the Code of Ethics. It had been recommended back in November of last year that the Rules Revision Committee would compile a recommended Code of Ethics.
Angela, you want to address that, or you want me to?
So, okay. So Patsy and I reviewed the Code of Ethics from ASCLS, AMT, and which other organization was it? There was 3 organizations.
AAB.
AAB. And really, after reviewing them, we felt like the ASCLS Code of Ethics really encompassed all of the qualities that we thought should be in a Code of Ethics. And so without really laboring over it, we just felt like we personally felt like we could adopt the ASCLS Code of Ethics. I believe that Patsy emailed them all to you. And so we thought we could have a discussion about that. Maybe if anyone has any objections or suggestions or recommendations about that Code of Ethics and whether or not we should implement it for ourselves.
Any comments?
Did everybody receive it?
I agree. I think the ASCLS Code of Ethics covers everything.
Would anyone like to make a recommendation that we modify or will take the ASCLS Code of Ethics as the Code of Ethics for our licensure?
I will.
I'll second.
A second.
Me, Shannon.
All right, let's all have a vote on all those that are in favor of accepting the ASCLS Code of Ethics as our committee, our licensures Code of Ethics. Say aye.
Aye.
Miss Patsy, is Brenda Spikes to be allowed in the meeting? That was a latecomer.
Who?
Brenda Spikes.
That's up to Gay. I don't know who that is.
She disconnected, so.
Okay.
Mr. Phillips,
there are other people in this meeting that were not announced.
We usually have guests introduce themselves. I didn't say anything at the beginning, but it didn't happen. Unmute. You need to unmute, Dr. Collada.
Everybody's got a picture or a name for everybody to see. If you want them, we can call their names to let them know, but everybody's got their name or their picture with their name on the screen right now. That's Miss
Are we
Gay's
gonna
wish.
have-
We can call them out.
Are we going to have a list of all these people that have attended? Because I don't have all these people written down.
Well, we actually have this entire meeting recorded. You'll be able to get
Okay.
that list from there, but if you want to go through it, we can go through the list right now.
We can do that. There are a few that are not committee members that have not been listed. I can go through what I'm reading, and as I call your name, please introduce yourself and tell us who you represent, your interest in our meeting. So, John Coke.
Yes, this is John Coke. I'm an attorney. I represent AAB.
Okay, Lexi.
Alexa Little with Clear Program. I'm not sure what my introduction is.
You're a consultant.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mark Berenbaum.
Yeah, I'm Mark Berenbaum. I'm Executive Director, American Association of Bioanalysts, and the AAB Board of Registry, American Board of Bioanalysis.
Michael Stout.
Michael Stout, High Complexity Clinical Laboratory Director through the American Board of Bioanalysts.
Tammy.
Hi, Tammy Shalhoub with the American Association of Bioanalysts.
Mr. Bagley. Mr. Bagley. I don't know who you are. Tricia Wilton.
He's one of the board attorneys from the AG's office.
Jerry Phillips.
Gary Phillips, you still listening?
Waddell.
Mr. Waddell.
Hey, Greg Waddell with Louisiana Hospital Association.
Thank you. I think that's everybody. Some have already left the group.
Okay. All right.
And we can.
This is Kerry Koch. I'm sorry. I think I lost connection for a minute. Kerry Koch, representing AAB.
Okay, thank you.
Because those are usually listed in the minutes. They're usually listed in the minutes. That's why. Okay.
I took a screenshot of this also, so we can see.
Good. Great.
So we got we voted in favor, but I think I never did ask for a vote of those opposed to accepting the ASCLS Code of Ethics. Any opposed, please voice your opinion. Okay, so it's passed unanimously. Next on the agenda, licensure for grossing tissue. I believe Dr. Ogden had been working on this.
Before Dr. Ogden speaks, I just want to say real quick, I'm going to have to leave the meeting. I may be able to rejoin later, but if you finished, then I won't be able to. So it was good seeing you all, and I'm sorry I have to leave the meeting.
Okay, so I think initially we had a request, it was, I think, initiated by CLIA, and also a dermatologist had a question about grossing ability for people in their office. So I sent Patsy a list of what our policy is at our group, which reflects CAP regulations. And for people who we consider grossing techs that handle small specimens, we have a list of specimens that are acceptable. The person has to meet the requirement of CLIA to be able to perform high complexity testing. So for us, they have to have a baccalaureate degree or higher. And we have a list of the limited number of specimens that can be handled by somebody, a small specimen that can be handled by people who meet that criteria. And I sent Patsy that list. So that's one aspect of it, is these offices like dermatologist offices and I guess other physicians' offices that have people doing grossing of small specimens that they have. And so we do have an official list, and we can use that policy as a format to go on for us to look at.
I sent that out to everybody, Beverly. So everybody should have those all 3 documents that you sent to me.
Okay. Okay, so I think, Patsy, my main question is, do we want to just address those types of specimens? Because that was the original request. I know there's a bigger picture with around pathology assistants who do much more complex specimens and have much more stringent requirements. But I think this was the basic question. So do we just want to address that and solve that problem?
I think that's been our question. That would include all the questions that we've had that come to the board about that. I think what you're talking about would solve that. And it would be, I think it would be helpful to have the board address this and, you know, put out an opinion so that when they call, we can guide the questions to the board's opinion.
Okay, well, if everybody approves that list, or if they have any other discussions, we can do that. If everybody approves that, I can work with you on getting something drafted for us.
That's fine with me, depending, yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Collada.
If there's a request for an advisory opinion on this, the first thing the board is going to want to know is, what do you really want? Do you want to limit it to this? Do you want to set up a new licensing class? I think that you need to flush out and be clear about what you ask the board to do and what you want them to express an opinion about. Because if they're not clear, they're just going to bounce it right back here. So I think if you organize what you are specifically asking the board to do, and if you want to set up a new license class, that's fine with us. The board will take it under advisement and make a decision. They'll look at the law and the rules to make sure we can do it. And if need be, we'll go to the issue of changing the law. But they clearly, before you just bounce up some suggestions, make sure you know the exact ask and the plan, and you can outline that in the request that you send the board, so that the board will not have to debate a long time and then say, oh, we better send this back. I'm just trying to expedite the process for this committee.
Well, we at this time, I don't think we want to address licensures for PAs. That's a bigger presentation. So we're trying to address, and I'll speak more with you and Patsy, and we can talk to Alexa too, because I know Clea had questions about this, is how to word this opinion on who this applies to.
I do think whatever we do, it's going to ultimately need to be approved by this committee before it goes to the board. But if you just want to give Patsy and Dr. Ogden and myself carte blanche to send it whatever we think, that's fine. But I would tell you that if they ask me what's the final thought on the advisory committee, and I say, well, they empowered us to do it, they say, well, we may want them to look at it. So just, I think you need to be clear what you ask them, know what you're asking them, and be prepared that if it's not clear, they're going to come back.
Okay, and maybe could we, Patsy, once we draft something, send it out to the board for, we can send it to them and ask for discussion prior to sending to the board?
The board is not going to discuss this. You mean the advisory committee? The advisory committee.
No, I'm talking about our committee.
Okay, well, the advisory committee would have to have a meeting. You just can't circulate that, because that's considered a rolling quorum, and that's in violation of the law.
Okay. Well, I guess we can find out today if everybody receives that, if they're okay for us working through the details to present something to the board.
Patsy, I cannot find that in my email. Do you know when you might have sent it?
Yesterday. What, the documents?
The one that y'all are discussing right now.
I sent them yesterday. Let me go to my sent items.
I think maybe this morning, Patsy, because you told me you didn't get it till late last night, maybe.
Oh, maybe not. Yeah, maybe so. If not, I will send them all to you again. Or if I didn't, I'll do it now.
And we can, actually, if you want, we can just present it at the next meeting. I don't know if there's an emergency for this. I know it's been on our radar for a while, but I mean, if we wanted to be much cleaner about it, we can just draft something and present it at the next committee meeting, which may be the best thing to do.
I think that's the best thing to do because I haven't had any questions recently, but over the years, off and on, it continues to come up. So
and CLIA, I know Alexa has said there have been questions for them and CLIA. So I think we can. Well, I propose that we work on that and we present something back for the committee for approval at the next meeting.
We haven't had any questions because we haven't been surveying, but we just started resuming survey activity. So we'll start to go back out, but it's not something that we run into on every survey. It's just sites that are grouping that we're seeing that.
So Patsy, if you would resend those documents for everyone to review, and then for our next board meeting, if y'all will, you and Dr. Ogden and Dr. Van will have compiled what y'all want to recommend to the state board, to the committee meeting, and then what y'all are going to recommend to the state board, then we can vote on it, and when it goes to the state board, then they'll know that the committee's looked at.
I just sent them. It's 3 documents. I thought I had done it before, but maybe I didn't.
Do y'all want us to review those now?
No, I'll review them before the next meeting, and then we'll present at the next meeting our finalized proposal.
All right, that sounds good. Do we need to vote on that, Dr. Van?
Oh.
Unmute yourself, then. Dr. Van, unmute yourself, please.
All right, there it goes. You don't really have to have a motion at this point because you're not taking any formal action. You're just saying we're not ready to go over it, and you're going to continue to review it at this level. Once you're ready to send it, though, I think you need to have a motion to say what you're sending is what you want the board to act on.
Okay, we'll have that together before the next meeting.
We also need to review and be sure that there's nothing in that lab assistant checklist that says anything about handling tissue specimens.
Tissues? Okay. I don't think there is, but I don't know.
Can I ask a question? Can we please get the host to mute everybody's input because we're getting feedback?
I can mute them all. They just need to remember to unmute themselves when they.
That would be wonderful.
That'd be great.
All right.
Next on the agenda is orientation material review. Patsy sent us some questions that they had worked on.
Yes, we put together a few questions. We cleaned up a few questions that were already there, and basically wanted to know if anybody had any other questions they might want to add to that, or delete what's in there. But we do need to update those orientation questions. It's old.
And Patsy and I have done that a bit, but one of the things which springs to mind for me, not having what your proposed changes are, is do we need to include
We lost you.
Susie, your audio went out.
I mean, I'm not muted.
I can hear you now.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
good.
my power is out, so I'm on my phone is my power source. For some reason, our power is out in this house. But no, I was just saying that in addition to whatever your thoughts are about the questions that Patsy and I looked at and that you were sent, since you are creating some rules, some proposed rule changes, do we need any questions that reflect those, those rule changes, so that we make sure people coming in are, being quizzed on whatever changes you hope
I think that we're so far out on that we need to change what we've got now and then make changes later if anything needs to be inserted in those questions at that time. Because I mean, if it's going to take 6 or 7 months, I think what we have on there now needs to be updated.
So the desire of the committee is to change, update the course and update the questions. You and I have, I believe, sort of updated the course as well.
How do we see the course? I'd like the committee to look at the course.
I will get you sent the password and the entryway. I'll take care of that and send it to you, and you can send it on to the committee.
That would be great.
Can I ask some questions about specific questions? Just number 10, the 12 hours, is it 12 for every level? I mean, I know it's CLS, MLT, but it's the same for Labs. Everybody is 12?
Everybody is 12.
Okay. And on number 13, you are a licensed CLS specialist in chemistry. Just because I'm coming at this as an instructor for MLT and phlebotomy, where if they miss something, it's like, well, I read it like this. I just maybe clarify that it is only a specialist, because you can be a generalist and get a specialist. So
you're saying if your only license is specialist.
Yeah, I think it should be clear that that's the only license that you have in that question, because it can, like I said, just to alleviate any confusion by applicants. Because I know students would be like, well, I thought they could be both. And then you're like, well, they could,
Well, really, there's no reason for anybody to have a specialist license if they have a generalist license, because the generalist license
Right. We've got some of those FBB people out there that do.
Yeah, well, they don't need it, but
like,
they have FBB certification. I know what you're talking about. I agree, but they are also generalist. So
right.
Yeah, I could write it like that. We can change the wording on that.
Just so it's stronger, so there's no confusion where they don't,
Okay.
Are there other questions you think need to be in there, or additional questions, that should be asked, or the same question that should be asked several different ways? When possible, we like to have a question bank where we ask, we have several versions of the same question, basically asking the same thing, just so that, people don't see the same question all the time. I would like to mention, since there's a lot of people in this committee, I've never met any of you before. I have worked with the committees in the past, way back when. You were the first licensee group we ever made one of these courses for. So our technology has improved and our learning has improved, and it is very much due for a renovation, of course. But just to make the point that in terms of the quiz, when possible, we like to substitute, different questions for the same idea. And also, we change the question order every time someone takes the quiz, and we usually, change the response, the order of the responses as well. And we try, when possible, not to have an all of the above type question. So everything changes just in terms of, if someone's bound and determined to cheat, I suppose they could try it, but we make it not worth it. Or we do our darndest.
Do we need to vote on this update to the orientation quiz? Accept it as is edited right now?
Ms. Gay, if you're going to approve it as is, then it'll be, the questions will be as you approve them today. If you want us to work on those questions, that's a different issue. But if everybody's satisfied with the questions as they are, you could move and approve it right now.
I'd like to see us as a group approve what we've got so that it can be updated and be improved from what's currently on the board. But I'd also like for all the committee members to prepare at least one question for us to discuss next time that we can give to Susie to put in a bank so that the test can be expanded.
I think that would be wonderful. And also, I would like you all to, if you want to review the course, I would love to have you do that. So that way it takes our IT staff, they're busy a certain amount of time to change these courses. So I don't even want to submit these changes till you guys have had a chance to look at the course, because I know you're going to have suggestions.
Okay.
We will table changing it until we can review the course and have more questions to be submitted and approved by the committee. Okay.
If we do that, can you say that to include the change that Shannon has suggested?
Yeah.
In that one question, that we use the questions that we've submitted with the change that Shannon has suggested to that question, to number 13.
Okay, but I thought Susie didn't want to make any changes to the test at all until we'd reviewed the course.
Yeah, what I was saying, Patsy, and you may not have heard me, is that this takes a while. And given that sorry, that's my real phone in the background. Sorry. Given that the committee members want to look at the course, and I do think you should, and I think there will be a lot of input on that, which will be a good thing. I don't even want to ask IT to make these changes because it takes a while, and I know that you all are going to have some excellent suggestions as well as excellent new questions. So I'm happy to take into account what Shannon said and put it in there, but I think we have another iteration coming.
Okay.
If that's okay with the committee.
Okay, so as the committee, we will receive the ability to review the course, and we'll develop some questions and present all that at our. Y'all all good with that? Any comments?
Yeah, are we gonna have like a deadline and a certain person to send questions to so that they can all be typed up in this, like this one? So at the next meeting, we can, we're not submitting them at the next meeting?
You can send them to me.
Okay.
Because I've already got those, so I can just add to that. That'll be the.
She can forward them to me.
Okay.
Do y'all think we'll try to have another meeting like in December?
December's difficult.
Okay.
If people are willing to, it's fine, but it's very hard to get a quorum in December.
Okay. Yes, sir.
January is fine, but whether it's December or January, remember that whenever we're sort of constrained by whatever goes on with the emergency declaration. Depending upon what happens this weekend, Monday, Tuesday, about the petition, it may be over. It may come back in 7 days. We don't know. But if there is no emergency declaration, it would require an in-person meeting. If there's an emergency declaration continuing, we can use the Zoom technology. So just as you plan for January, think about that right now.
That's what I was thinking. It may be easier to have a Zoom meeting while we can have a Zoom meeting instead of getting everyone to travel down to New Orleans. But does anyone have a recommendation on a deadline for us to submit a question? About December 15th.
Okay.
Everybody submit a question for the orientation quiz based on our study and our rules. Look over it, pull on your experience from working in a lab, what people really needed to know. And by December 15th, please send that to Patsy. I have next on the agenda executive session. Is there anything that needs to, is there any other business or anything that needs to be moved up before that?
Do we want to do other business before the executive session?
I think so. That way, when people are dismissed, they won't have to worry about coming back.
Right.
I have a possible other business. I guess this is where I need to ask it. On the orientation checklist for lab assistants, it says that that checklist must be filled out and sent to the board every year or with medical director changes. Is this being done this time?
It is not sent every year.
So do we need to change while we're making some of these changes? Do we need to take that off of that checklist, that competency checklist?
Or enforce it.
Or enforce it, yeah.
So we know that at our facilities, if they are inspected, they are having to do competencies on these people as per CLIA, initial 6 months, a year, and then annually thereafter. So if we're not holding them to sending it to the state for the state to look at, then I really think we could change it that they just have to do the initial.
I think, I do think that each hospital, once they add to what they've assured the board that person can do, if they teach them any new things, that needs to be added to their competency checklist. So when they're inspected, you know, you'll, as your institution would have what they're competent to do. Somebody needs that.
At this point, you've got it on the checklist that it has to be sent to the state.
Yeah, I know.
And so it's kind of confusing to the new ones that are trying to fill it out and trying to meet the goals that are before them, right. Their license.
Yeah. Well, I think that somebody could address that. I don't know.
Patsy, we don't have any problem receiving them. They can send them by PDF. We can put them in the file of the affected practitioner. The issue is it reasonable that the board have it, or should it be something that CLIA would look for at the individual labs inspection? I think you know, you kind of don't want to give people more work than they need to do, because if they're having to do it at the hospital when CLIA comes, that's fine. If you want us to keep it in the licensee's record, we can, but we're in no position to say anything other than this is the information received by the hospital. The inspectors of the lab, whether that be CLIA or the laboratory inspection for ASCP, whatever it is, we're not going to get involved in that. We're just going to hold the data, but it's up to you all what you want to do.
So from a CLIA standpoint and inspection standpoint, the issue that we come across is kind of like Michelle was saying, if they do the initial, so when they get their lab assistant and let's say they're licensed for moderate complexity hematology. So what we find is if we come in and they've then like added on chemistry, their lab assistant license is still only for hematology. We have a hard time figuring out what the board has licensed them to perform versus what they're actually doing in the hospital lab director, whomever has said they're competent to do. From our perspective, we would like for those to be streamlined. I don't necessarily, and this is just, you know, my opinion from a survey perspective, annually sending it to the board that they're still competent annually is, I would think not necessary. Only initially what specialty they are certified for performing tests, and then if they change it, if they add on an additional specialty, then send it to the board that the director, a medical technologist, somebody has said they're competent to perform that, and the board is saying they're licensed to perform that. That's what we're looking at. What has the board licensed them to perform? What they're competent on an annual, semi-annual, whatever frequency that the lab is determining is totally separate from initially whatever the board is saying they're licensed to perform, if that helps at all.
Would it, Dr. Van, would it be possible for us to have them, the licensee lab assistant, submit their competency checklist if it's changed only with their renewal?
That would be fine. What they could do is would have to have, you know, some way of verifying that that's exactly who's changed it and not the wrong person changing it, but the appropriate person changing it. And we are in the process of looking to ways to make things more effective digitally in this world, things like DocuSign and that kind of stuff. But at the present time, we could accept them. It would be better if they came from the hospital or whatever credentialing body is giving them this new permit.
Right.
And I think if they send them on behalf of the licensee to our licensing agency, we could go ahead and keep that and then keep those records for them. But the key here is that what we don't want to do is have, as we have in the past, have some people change the form and do it themselves. And it's really not the best way to do that.
Oh, no, I agree. You're right. I agree. But I mean, if what I'm with Lexi, if what they're doing doesn't change, then I don't see them needing to send in a new competency checklist every year. That's extra work for all the labs and they don't have the time. But if they do add on something, then the hospital should send that to the board. And I think then when Lexi goes to survey, then if they don't have it, then they're not licensed to perform those tests.
So can we just
send updates?
So can we just change what is on that competency form instead of saying it must be submitted annually? Can we just say that it must be submitted upon changes to your competency or something to that wording?
I like that. I think that's a good idea.
And I would do it when that competency is changed, not just at renewal. Whenever it's done, the hospital send it to us and we'll put it in. Patsy, you and I can work on that form and we'll get that taken care of for y'all.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Curiosity, is there a way to see, like for specialists or lab assistants, is there a way to track what specialties they should be or they're licensed to perform? I mean, I know generalist is across the board, but for specialist and lab assistant, is there a way for, I mean, us or anybody to see what that individual is licensed under specific specialties or anything?
At the present time, I'd have to tell you that I don't know, but I think if you're asking us to do that and it's reasonable to ask that, we would have to go ahead and adjust. And Alan, you can help me out here. We'd have to adjust when somebody calls to verify a license or goes online to verify a license, we would then be able to put what they're currently licensed to do at that point. But as far as other than that, I think that would be the only thing we could do from a technology point of view to give you the information you're looking for, so that if you went to inspect a lab, you would actually just go ahead and make that happen in such a way that you have to look them up and they'll be available to you. I'm not sure if that's what Lexi you're looking for, but you'll have to tell me.
So right now what happens is we go on site, and if there's a question with a license, we just send it to Patsy. Somebody pulls their file and tells us what their what specialties they're licensed to perform. I'm just wondering if, I mean, there's a cute little specialty column.
Like I said, we can adjust the pro.
It would be great if we could use that for lab stuff with the specialties in here.
As far as I know, and I haven't checked on one, but the specialists are it's supposed to show.
Yes.
Now the lab assistants, is that right, Ellen?
Yes.
Yeah. If you look up somebody with a specialist license, it should say chemistry or blood bank.
That's like a Christmas present to me.
Their specialty is
that's your Christmas
I'm in Oregon. I'm so happy.
Their
So that's
specialty,
already on there, but not for lab assistants. We haven't done that.
their specialty should appear if that field has been populated.
Hallelujah, if we're using it, it's beautiful.
Well,
I'm out. I'm okay. At the whole meeting.
Now, what I haven't done, I don't think, is anybody new that's got a specialty license that goes on there. Now, going back to all the other people that have licensed as specialists in the past, I'm not sure. I doubt that has happened, and I don't know if I can do that. But if I could do that, I would do that.
Patsy, let's think about that. I think we can, but let's plan on this. That's not something we can handle today at the meeting. But Patsy, you and I and Alan can get together and figure out a way to do that and report back at the next meeting, because I do think it's doable. We may have to send some inquiries to all of the specialists to give us their updated list if we're going to do that, and we can do that as well. But I'd like to flush those out, make sure we can get the programming done to handle it. And that way, when Lexi goes to look at something online, she'll get everything she needs as accurate as we have it.
I think that's really important because for some reason, people with specialty licenses think they can supervise any area of the lab. So we have people with specialties in chemistry that are directing labs that have hematology in it. And I've found some of those and we've stopped those. But I think that is happening. And I'm sure maybe Lexi has seen that as well. I don't know. But I think this would be a really good thing. And they need to know that they can only direct or supervise the area in which they have a specialty, not anything in the lab.
So we do run into that, and it causes we try to just send if it's licensure, we just want to cite it and then refer it to you guys, because that's kind of like where the role lies. But I do find that we lose some of that referring it and knowing if we're able on site to, hypothetically, if we could look online and see what specialty that specialist should be practicing, supervising, whatever it may be. If we can do that on site, it kind of goes full circle. But if we have to come back, write the report, ask what license, what specialty that license covers, a lot of times they start to fall off and we can't follow through all the way because it just gets lost in the shuffle. But if we can identify it on site, we're able to send that to LSBME and you guys handle it on a licensure standpoint and get full circle and not kind of miss that step.
Yeah, well, I'll make the commitment that Patsy and I will get together with Alan, see about working out the details and report back at the next meeting.
Okay. Any other business? If there's no other new business or old business to discuss, we will have a vote to move into executive motion to move into executive session.
Aye.
I make a motion we move into executive session, please.
I'll second.
Seconded by Shannon.
So now we vote to move into executive session.
Yes, ma'am. And then we'll pause to take care of some electronic housekeeping, and then we'll go on.
All those in favor of moving into executive session at this time, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, give us a few minutes. We have to turn off the live YouTube feed. We have to go through the list of people that appear on the screen and get them out if they're not belonging to be here. Ms. Wilton will stay as counsel to the board. She'll be on with us. And so I'm looking at some names. Yolanda should stay, but should Jerry Phillips stay?